have a fabulous blend of Nebbiolo and Merlot. Well, with Nebbiolo and Merlot, those earthy flavors, wonderful flavors, what's better with that than a nice wild mushroom risotto? So I'm going to start right now with a little bit of risotto. I have in my pan just a little bit of olive oil, and I want to turn that to about a medium-high heat. Now, the first thing I'm going to start with is an onion, and I just want to start to saute that just a little bit in the oil. And notice that I didn't put it in hot oil. I kind of want to coat that onion with my oil. I'm going to start with my mushrooms in the other pan. So I have this other pan here that is just right for sauteing a little bit of vegetable. You can do anything with risotto. You can make it with peas and ham. You can make it with vegetables. I love it with wild mushrooms. So here I have a couple tablespoons of a nice butter. And I usually use salted butter. And the reason that I use salted butter, I know a lot of chefs say use unsalted, so you can control the salt. But in all honesty, there's not a lot of salt in there, and I feel like I can still control the salt. And butter that has salt in it actually lasts a little longer in your refrigerator. All right, so let's get that melted. And let's add a chopped shallot. Now, shallots will be a little sweeter than the white onion. So there's a juxtaposition here with a little bit of sweetness in that red and the nice bold flavor of a white onion. And my onion is just starting to get slightly translucent. Let's stir it around the rest of the way, and then I'll add my risotto. All right, so I have my risotto in there, and I just want to start to almost toast it. I'm not really looking for color. What I'm looking for is coating. And my shallot is getting nice and translucent, so now I want to add my mushrooms. Now I have about 4 cups of mushrooms here. I have maitake, shiitake, I have a little oyster, and some baby bellas to kind of give it a little more body. And I'm just going to start sauteing those. Okay, at this point I want to add, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic chopped to my risotto. Now the key to risotto is putting in only a little liquid at a time. So I have some nice hot chicken stock here, and I'm going to take it about 6 ounces at a time after the first addition. So the first time, about 12 ounces. And that's about 1.5 cups, right? 1.5 cups. So let's just stir this through. And what you're doing is getting the rice, that wonderful arborio, to just soak up all of that liquid before you add more. And those mushrooms are looking absolutely amazing. And at this point, I want to add a little seasoning to those. Now I'm going to add a little bit of just dried parsley to this, and a little bit of rubbed thyme. Now, if you're making this in the summer and you have a little thyme in your garden, use a little fresh thyme. And you can also use dried thyme, but I think the flavor really is dispersed so much better with the rubbed thyme, so that's what I like to use. All right, now to that I'm also going to add 1 scoop of my stock. And the reason I want to do that is because I don't want to bring that temperature in the rice as it's cooking down. It will make the risotto extremely sticky. As the risotto starts to get a little bit thicker, you want to make sure that you're really stirring toward that center so it doesn't burn. As you get to the stage where you only have a couple of cups of liquid to add, You don't want to overcook this, but if you undercook it, it will definitely be hard. So just check it for that al dente. You just want it to the tooth. So what I want to do before I add the last little bit of liquid is to put in a little more wine, a different liquid. Now when you're making this, you can use red wine or white wine, you can use a rosé. I think it's much prettier with a white wine because it makes the risotto just so much more creamy looking. So the last thing I want to do is season it with a little salt and pepper, and I want to add some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Now this is a Nebbiolo and Merlot combination, and I love it with this risotto. Let's give it a little taste. So perfect. I love it. Oh, such a nice combination. So I hope you'll enjoy this recipe.